After I collapsed at work, the doctors called my family. No one came. Hours later, my brother tagged me in a photo. Whole crew together, finally complete. I kept silent. Days later, still weak and hooked to machines, I saw 50 missed calls, and a message from my parents. We need your help. Answer immediately. I got angry, and without thinking twice, They say you know who truly cares about you when your world stops. Mine stopped between emails on a Tuesday. I'd been grinding for years. Juggling 2 jobs in college, then jumping straight into a corporate role after graduation. My 20s weren't about traveling or exploring life. They were about building something. Stability. Security. Dreams, yeah, sure, but also a burden. One I didn't choose. That burden was my family. While my friends talked about trips to Europe or new hobbies, I was wiring money home to cover utilities. I was helping mom pay off her credit cards. I was fronting rent when my brother's startups failed, which they always did, because he never actually started anything. Dad hadn't worked a full-time job since I was in high school, and mom floated between passion projects that cost more than they ever brought in. They were used to it. Used to me. And I let them. Because that's what family does, right? Until that Tuesday. I'd skipped breakfast to finish a proposal. Barely had time to breathe between meetings. It was just past noon when my hands started shaking. My monitor blurred. I remember trying to reach for my water bottle, and then nothing. Just the loud crash of my body hitting the floor, and the echo of someone yelling my name. I woke up in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, with monitors beeping all around me. A seizure, they said. Brought on by stress, dehydration, and sheer exhaustion. I was in the ICU for observation. The nurse asked if she could call my emergency contacts. I nodded. She dialed. First, my mom. No answer. Then my dad. Voicemail. Then my brother. Nothing. They left messages. Said it was urgent. That their son was in the hospital. I waited. Hours passed. No one called back. The sun started to set, casting orange light through the blinds. I was still dizzy, still too weak to sit up for more than 5 minutes. When I finally grabbed my phone, it had 2% battery and no missed calls. But at the top of my feed was a photo. My brother had tagged me in it. He was at our family lake house. Mom and Dad were there too, along with a few old neighbors and cousins. Everyone was holding drinks, smiling, arms thrown around each other like some Norman Rockwell painting. The caption? Whole crew together, finally complete. I stared at it for a long time. No one had noticed I was gone. No one had even asked. I thought about commenting. Something sarcastic. Something to make them notice. But what was the point? So I stayed quiet. That night, one of my coworkers brought me soup and a fresh charger. Another dropped off some clean clothes. People who barely knew me were checking in. Asking how I was doing. Making sure I had what I needed. My family? Still silent. Until day 5. I was just finishing a breathing treatment when my phone started buzzing like crazy. Dozens of missed calls. Most from my mom. Some from Dad. 2 from my brother, both made after midnight. Then a message appeared, short and to the point. Mom, we need your help. Answer immediately. No context. No warmth. Just help. I called. She didn't even say hello. They needed $11,000. Right away. It was about Michael, of course, my brother. His car had finally died, and this was some rare chance to buy a replacement from a family friend. They didn't want to miss out. And they didn't have the cash. But I did. Right. Because I always did. Because I always saved. Always worked overtime. Always planned ahead. And because somehow they thought I owed them. That it was my job to make sure Michael could cruise around in a new SUV while I was still attached to heart monitors. They said they'd pay me back. They always said that. But nothing ever came back. I didn't say a word. Just hung up. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like weakness. It felt like peace. The calls didn't stop after I hung up. 3 days, non-stop. My phone buzzed like a fire alarm. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. Subject lines in all caps from my mom. Urgent, please read Michael's future. The desperation in their messages didn't come from love or worry. It came from entitlement. From panic that their golden son might have to take the bus like the rest of us. They needed $11,000. Now. Because their son, the one who partied through college and quit every job that asked him to show up before 11 a.m., deserved a second-hand Lexus, not the beat-up Civic he'd driven into the ground. I didn't respond. I watched the messages pile up and said nothing. It was amazing how quickly their tones shifted when I didn't play along. First it was guilt. Then pressure. Then passive-aggressive quotes about family values, and how those who have help. But not one of them, not a single one, asked how I was. No one knew I'd had to crawl to the bathroom twice because I was too weak to stand. No one knew about the anxiety that came every time the heart monitor beeped too fast. My discharge papers were still on my kitchen counter when I got the last voicemail from my dad, something about how we raised you better than this. It wasn't until Michael's birthday that I broke the silence, internally. I didn't get an invite. I didn't expect one. But my Aunt Linda, Dad's older sister, called me 2 days later. She never got involved in family drama, so I picked up. She sounded hesitant, but I could tell she'd been holding something in. She'd gone to the party, of course. Everyone was there. Big turnout at the lake house. The same place they posted that photo while I was in the ICU. Michael got his car, not the Lexus, but something close enough. A used Audi? Must have scraped it together from credit cards and a loan from one of Dad's old poker buddies. No one mentioned where it came from. But I came up. Apparently Mom told everyone I was off the rails. That I'd cut off the family over a minor disagreement. That I was going through some kind of emotional phase. No mention of the hospital. No mention of the money. Just that I'd turned my back on Michael. Then Michael stood up to make a toast. To the people who show up when it counts, he said, glass raised. Not the ones who pretend to care when it's convenient. They all laughed. Except my aunt. She said it made her sick. That she hadn't realized how far they'd sunk into this fantasy of theirs. The kind where Michael was the center of the universe, and I was some ghost they remembered only when bills were due. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my apartment for a long time. Then I got to work. The apartment Michael lived in? Mine. Bought it with my first big bonus. I'd let him stay there after he got burned out from living with roommates. He paid nothing. Not even the water bill. Every time I asked about it, there was some excuse. Some project in the works. Some promise. That ended the next morning. I called my lawyer. Filed an official eviction notice. Had it posted on the front door by noon. No arguments. No warnings. I also closed every joint account they had access to. The family emergency fund Mom dipped into for vacation spending. The temporary line of credit I'd opened for Dad when his golf club threatened to revoke his membership. Gone. They weren't just cut off. They were blindfolded and dropped in the middle of the maze they built. Within hours, the fallout started. Mom called. Crying. Swearing. Pleading. Telling me I was tearing the family apart. That I was turning into a stranger. That I was letting bitterness poison me. I listened. Then I blocked her number. And I wasn't done. They'd spent years telling their version of the story, that I was the quiet one, the helper, the one who always came through. And when I stopped playing my part, they decided I was the problem. Fine. Let them taste what being a problem actually felt like. They thought silence was cruelty? They hadn't seen anything yet. I didn't plan revenge at first. I just wanted space. I wanted them to feel the absence they never noticed when I collapsed at work and vanished into a hospital bed. But once the eviction hit, and the money dried up, the real them showed up. The text turned to threats. Michael texted me a photo of the eviction notice, scrawled something across it in red marker, and sent a caption. "You've got serious issues. Hope you're proud of this." I didn't reply. Then Mom's sister, my Aunt May, messaged me out of nowhere. She hadn't spoken to me in years. Claimed she was just checking in, but quickly switched gears. Said my mom had fainted from stress. That she was being monitored for heart problems. That maybe this wasn't the best time to add more to her plate. Right. The woman who forgot I existed while I was hooked to machines was now collapsing because her cash flow dried up. Still, part of me paused. Wondered if I was going too far. If maybe I was being exactly what they were saying, cold, vindictive, heartless. Then I saw the Facebook post. Mom had written this long, sappy update, full of half-truths and manipulative phrasing. Said her son, not Michael, me, had turned away from the family in their time of need. That he'd cut all ties after years of loving support. No details. No explanation. Just enough to make people fill in the blanks with sympathy and outrage. The comments poured in. Unbelievable. After everything you did for him? Kids these days are so selfish. Stay strong, Mama. God sees your heart. And right there, Michael chimed in. He made his choice. We'll be okay without him. Always have been. Always have been. That was it. I screenshotted everything. The Facebook post. The texts. The message from Aunt May. I sent them to Aunt Linda and a few other relatives who'd quietly supported me over the years but never got involved. I asked one question. Would you like to hear the real story? Most didn't reply. But some did. And once I started talking, the dam broke. Turns out I wasn't the only one they'd leaned on. Not the only one they'd manipulated. Just the only one dumb enough to keep saying yes. That's when I pulled out the receipts. Literally. Bank transfers. Old texts. Promises they made about temporary loans. I had everything. Thousands of dollars they'd borrowed over the years with casual commitments to pay it back when we're doing better. They were never doing better. They were just doing me. I contacted a lawyer. We drafted the paperwork. A formal demand for repayment. Nothing exaggerated. Just the actual total they owed, plus interest. With deadlines. With consequences. And with proof that they'd agreed to it all. It was no longer personal. It was legal. I sent it by certified mail. Had it signed for. Watched the digital confirmation come through while I was eating lunch with a friend, one of the few people who had driven across town just to sit with me after my hospital stay. Someone who didn't want anything from me. That's when I realized something. They hadn't just abandoned me. They'd never even tried to know me. And now that they needed something? Now I was a monster. Fine. Then I'd become the monster they created. 2 weeks passed after the legal notice went out. Nothing. No response. Not even the fake kind, no voicemails filled with dramatics, no texts pretending to be confused. Just silence. And I was fine with that. Until someone knocked on my door. It was a Tuesday evening. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole, and froze. It was my Uncle Rick. I hadn't seen him in over 5 years. Mom's brother. The black sheep of the family, or at least that's how she always described him. Loud, opinionated, unpredictable. He was the only one who walked out during an argument at Michael's graduation party and never looked back. I opened the door. He looked tired, like he'd been driving a long time. Said he'd heard what happened. Not just from Linda, but from Facebook. From the family group chat he was still technically in, even though he never answered. He sat down on my couch and handed me a thick folder. Your mom and Michael have been using your name for loans, he said. I found out through a friend who works in auto financing. I stared at him. He explained that when Michael got the Audi, it wasn't just from some shady loan or dad's buddy, it was fraud. Michael had used my old pay stubs. My old apartment lease. Claimed we were co-signers. My signature was forged. I didn't believe it until I opened the folder. There it was. A financing document with my name typed under Michael's. A scribbled signature that didn't even come close to mine. And the payments were already 2 months behind. They weren't just leeches. They were criminals now. Uncle Rick told me he didn't come to stir up more problems. He came because he'd been in a similar spot once, years ago. With the same people. Said I wasn't crazy. Said I wasn't alone. That night, I made another call to my lawyer. Now there were 2 cases, one for unpaid debts, and one for fraud. Both would hit hard. Both were airtight. And I was done waiting. The day after the papers were filed, everything exploded. My cousin sent me screenshots of a meltdown happening in real time on Facebook. My mom posted a long message about betrayal, lies, how I was trying to destroy my brother's life. Out of pure jealousy. That I'd forged documents to ruin them. Michael added a video of him crying, saying he was being hunted by his own flesh and blood. That he might lose everything. The comments section went nuclear. Friends from their church. neighbors, old teachers, all siding with them. But then something strange happened. Underneath all the sympathy comments there were replies. From my Aunt Linda. From Uncle Rick. Even from a few of my old high school friends who knew the truth. One by one, they posted screenshots. The fake co-signature. The text threads where they asked for money. The Facebook post from the hospital week with the lake house caption. People started questioning the story. And then Mom made it worse. She posted a photo of herself in a hospital gown. With a caption about stress-induced chest pains caused by a vindictive son. Except the photo wasn't from now. It was from 3 years ago. When she had minor outpatient surgery. I recognized it immediately. She'd sent it to the family group chat back then, bragging about how quick the recovery was. Now she was using it to paint me as a monster. And it worked. For about a day. Until someone else, some random old neighbor, called it out publicly, posting a side-by-side with the original 2022 photo. That's when things flipped. And I wasn't done flipping them. Once the hospital photo was exposed as a fake, everything started cracking. The facade they'd held up for years, that shiny, sympathetic, tight-knit family image collapsed in real time. People who had rallied to their side suddenly vanished from the comment sections. Some even reached out to me directly, mostly quiet apologies. Didn't know the full story, your mom made it sound different. I feel sick that I believed it. But the ones who stayed quiet were the ones who mattered most. Cousins, family, friends, even people from church. The ones who'd always nodded along with my parents' version of things without asking questions. Now they weren't defending them, and they weren't defending me either. Just silence. Like they didn't want to choose sides. Then my phone rang. New number. I answered out of habit. It was Michael. His voice was thin, panicked. I could hear traffic in the background. He said he just found out the bank was after him for missed payments. That the apartment was locked. That his credit had been flagged for investigation. That he was staying with a friend, but it wasn't going to last long. I didn't say anything at first. Then he said something I'll never forget. You were always the one who bailed us out. Why are you doing this now? That was it. No apology. No shame. Just confusion. As if I was breaking some unspoken rule by saying no. I told him the truth. That he had 5 days to get his stuff and leave the apartment. That my lawyer was filing for fraud. That the years of me cleaning up his messes were over. He went quiet. Then hung up. I expected silence after that. Instead, the next day, I got a call from an old friend, Katie. We hadn't talked since high school. She said my mom called her in tears, asking if she could reach out to Brian and remind him who he is. Said she told her I was in some kind of breakdown. That the hospital stay wasn't physical, that it was mental, and that I was not well. That's when I knew they were really scared. Because lies like that was desperation. That was the last grenade you throw when you know the ship is going down. And they weren't just trying to save Michael anymore. They were trying to save themselves. Because earlier that week, they'd received the second letter. This one wasn't just about fraud. It was about repayment. A formal demand drafted with every dollar accounted for, with transaction logs, old texts, even casual email chains where they agreed to pay me back. When things are better. The total? $12,864.52. I gave them 60 days. I knew they wouldn't pay. But it was the line in the sand. No more. We'll figure it out. No more. Let's talk like family. Either they paid. Or they faced court. The interference didn't stop. More old faces started texting me. Childhood friends, distant cousins. People I hadn't heard from in 10, 15 years suddenly wanted to catch up. I could smell it from a mile away. Mom had activated the network. She was calling everyone who ever liked a photo of mine, trying to convince them I was unstable, angry, going through something. Some of them believed her. Some didn't. But the ones who knew me, who had been around when I was sending money every month, who saw me wear the same shoes for years because I was paying off my family's garbage, they started speaking up. One of them, Sam, posted everything in a single thread. Every screenshot I'd sent him. Every bank transfer. The forged document from the car loan. The lake house post. All of it. Public. On Facebook. No drama. Just facts. And it blew up. The next day, Mom deleted her account. Michael locked his. Dad tried to post something cryptic about family betraying family, but even that got ratioed by a bunch of people calling him out. And I wasn't even done. I made sure Michael was officially evicted. Locks changed. Utilities turned off. His keycard access revoked. He texted me from a different number that night, saying I was ruining his life. I didn't reply. Instead, I packed a bag and drove to Aunt Linda and Uncle Rick's place. They didn't ask me for anything. Didn't ask for updates. We grilled steaks, watched a game, and sat around telling old stories. Real ones. Rick just looked at me at one point and said, "Took him long enough to push the wrong one." I didn't smile. But I agreed. And I still wasn't finished. The last 60 days passed slowly, but not uneventfully. At first, I figured they'd ignore the repayment deadline like they had every other responsibility. But exactly 5 days before the deadline, their lawyer contacted mine. A man with a forced calm voice, trying to negotiate terms and explore alternate resolutions. He wanted to know if we'd consider canceling the lawsuits in exchange for a formal apology. Not money. An apology. My lawyer asked me what I wanted to do. I told him, keep going. A week later, the formal court date was set. That's when the meltdown hit. Michael tried to go public again. This time, with a blog post, a long, messy rant about being exploited by a jealous sibling, and thrown into the street. He even linked to a GoFundMe. I watched as it sat at $62 for 3 straight days. The only donors? 2 names I didn't recognize and one with my mom's middle name. Then came the surprise visit. A woman showed up at my door with a child, maybe 6 years old. She introduced herself as Ellie. Said she was Michael's ex. And the boy was his son. That was the first time I'd ever heard about a kid. She wasn't there for money. She was there for information. She said Michael told her I was the reason he lost his place to live, that he couldn't get a job because of me, and that I was going after their family. But then she found the Facebook post, the car loan documents, the eviction notice. And she knew he was lying. She'd left him a year ago because of lies and excuses. Now, he was trying to manipulate her into helping him again. She handed me her number and said if the court needed anything, she'd testify. That changed everything. We didn't even have to go to trial. A week before the court date, my parents folded. Their lawyer offered full repayment, over $12,000, but only if we agreed to keep everything private. No social media. No contact. No public statements. I agreed. With one condition. Michael had to sign a confession about the fraud. It wouldn't be submitted unless he violated the terms again, but I wanted it. Something to keep him from trying this again. After a long silence, he signed. Then the money hit my account. 13 years of giving erased in one lump sum. And it was finally done. After that, I did what I should have done years ago. I changed my number. Closed the last account that had my mom's name on it. Put the apartment in full lock and key. I even got a new emergency contact at work, my friend Colin. One of the few who sat with me in the hospital when no one else showed up. As for Michael, I heard from Aunt Linda that he tried moving back in with our parents, but the bank foreclosed on their house a month later. They'd stopped paying their mortgage to focus on the lawsuits. Now they live in a rental. Michael's credit is shot. He can't get a lease, can't get approved for a loan. The Audi was repossessed. His GoFundMe closed at $83. And his reputation? That's the only thing more empty than his bank account. Mom tried calling Linda last month to reconnect. Said the family had been through enough. Linda told her to call me directly. She never did. Because they knew there was nothing left to take. And for the first time in my life, truly, deeply, I didn't owe them a single thing. Not money. Not time. Not silence. Not anymore.